Hello, everyone. This is M again, super coach, CEO of the Soul Focus Group. And as I mentioned to you before, I feel privileged to be able to have these conversations with you, to be able to share my wisdom with you. When I say wisdom, I mean understandings that I've developed throughout my lifetime to know the difference between things. Wisdom is really about distinctions and being able to distinguish one thing from another, which is so essential to being able to live a life that is closer to what it is that you want to experience in life. Our lives are for us. They are our canvas, our work of art that we are to create into the image and likeness of our soul. It matches what we want to feel and want to experience as we go out into the world. So one of the things that stops us from doing that more than anything is fear, right? There's a lot that we think we know about fear, and there's a lot that we really don't know about fear. A large degree of the things that we attribute to fear are more of a perception, a belief system, than it is actual something threatening our lives. Like, for example, if you walked upon maybe let's say a rattlesnake, and you know that rattlesnake could bite you and send poison into your system and potentially kill you, you weren't thinking about and perceiving that before you came into contact with the rattlesnake. You walked upon the rattlesnake, and then immediately there was a reaction, a gut instinctual reaction that came from you that is designed to cause a reaction in you, to raise a level of respect in you, that you then reacted to the rattlesnake with appropriate reaction, because that thing could possibly take your life. Or the same as almost getting into a car accident and you find yourself reacting in a certain way that is appropriate to the stimuli. It's appropriate to almost getting hit. It's appropriate to almost getting in the crash. It's appropriate to almost losing your life. So that's one kind of fear, and it's more natural, and I wouldn't even call it fear. For the sake of this conversation, I wouldn't even call that fear. I would call that survival. I would call that a survival instinct, the reaction that we have within ourselves to survive something that is potentially threatening our existence. So I just call that survival, just for now. That's not our problem. Our problem is that the fear that we walk around with is more perception. And what is perception? When I say fear is perception, means that you perceive or you see yourself in the future losing. You see yourself in the future not winning. And it could have nothing to do with your life. It could have something to do with the fact that you don't think people are going to accept you, or you don't believe that people are going to like you. You believe your team is going to lose the game. Have nothing to do with life or death. It has everything to do with your perception of yourself winning or losing. Now, some of us perceive. Think about this for a second. Let's slow this down for a minute. Perception is in the realm of possibility, meaning it hasn't happened yet. You see it, but it hasn't happened. There's potentially something else available to happen. Matter of fact, there's a whole bunch of stuff that potentially can happen. However, because you see it in your mind's eye, you see yourself losing, you see yourself being embarrassed, you see yourself being turned down, you see yourself not being wanted, you see yourself in your mind as like a film projector going off in your mind, that's running this show where you constantly are seeing yourself not winning. And then what happens is you adjust your behavior to that view. So why is this so important? This is so important because we live in a universe where the law of perception still reigns supreme. Now, I don't know if you know about the law of perception, but I know I've talked about the law of perception in my videos. And the law of perception says this: what you see is what you get. Matter of fact, what you see is what you're preparing yourself to get from the very beginning. So if I'm walking around perceiving or envisioning myself losing, envisioning myself being rejected, envisioning myself not being accepted for the job, envisioning myself being turned down, envisioning my authentic self not being adequate, if that is the neural pattern in my brain that has been carved out through habit of years and years of learning to perceive being rejected as a way to sort of mitigate the level of potential pain or embarrassment I feel, then that becomes a habit in me. And so I start working without even knowing it. My creation power begins to start being used in reverse. In other words, my creation power is to create what I want to see in my life and out in my world. That's what my creation power is for. Every human being has been equipped with creation power so they can create the world that they want to see outside themselves that matches the world that they want to feel in themselves. So, but when you get into when you have a pattern that has been created, maybe through trauma, maybe through, hard times in life, where you learn to perceive yourself losing before you've even lost, before you even gotten the game, then that fear begins to reduce the capacity of your creation power. Most of us are walking around with a reduced capacity for creation, not because the power to create is not present in us. It's just that we're using it to create what we don't want, because we are envisioning through habit ourselves not winning, ourselves being rejected, ourselves being turned down. So get this, I said this earlier, we didn't come into this world to fight. We came into this world to create. And the thing is, most of the time we are creating what we don't want and don't know that we're using the same creation power to create what we don't want. As powerful and as fast as we create what we don't want, we can create what we want just as fast, except the only thing is we don't have the habit. We have a habit of perceiving, of envisioning and seeing ourselves losing before we've gotten to the game. I want you to think about that for a minute. Just consider that for a minute. You believe you're going to lose before you even give it a try. You believe they're going to find something wrong with you before you've even stepped out. And you say, well, I've stepped out before and they didn't see it. Well, get that. As the law of perception says, what you see is what you get. The reason why it's saying that is because if you're seeing it in your mind, you are believing it. And if you're believing it, then you're turning the wheels of the forces of your life in the direction of creating that as your reality. It doesn't mean that has to be your reality. Doesn't mean it is your reality. Doesn't mean it's the only option of reality. In every situation, there are multiple options of possible realities that we have to realize that we are creating into existence by our ability to see it. That's why I started off talking about leaders having vision, because we have vision whether we know it or not. Some of us walk around with this perception that we're going to lose and everybody's going to lose. And so we focus on fighting all the time because we always believe that we're going to lose. So you always feel like you got to defend yourself. You're always defensive. And for years, that's how we operated as an organization. We operated in a defense mode because we saw ourselves losing. Now, I want to challenge you to do this. We got to learn from our fear. We got to learn from having those types of fears, because those types of fears makes up about 95 to 98% of all our daily fears. It's a habit, belief systems that we have of the possibility of us losing. We see ourselves losing every day. We got to interrupt this pattern. If we don't interrupt this pattern, we'll continue to create into existence the things that we don't want and blame it on other people. I'm M, Super Coach, CEO of the Soul Focus Group. Peace.